All right, you freedom loving boys and girls, whoever you are, wherever you are. That used to be the old intro. Welcome to another episode 6, I think. So we can actually start counting scuba. That's 6. Episode 6, in case you were underwater. I couldn't just say the word 6. So, hey, welcome. Tonight, we're going to hopefully have a very fun episode. I don't know. It's going to depend on, I guess I should go that way. The things are always backwards. It'll depend. It won't depend on me. It's going to depend on our guest, Anthony, a.k.a. Learn Me Something. Before I introduce him, I just want to point something out. Full disclosure. Anthony, has purchased gear. He's a great guy. We talk quite a bit about these subjects and a lot of like religion. But he's just like you. So anybody else out there, if you ever want to come on and be a guest, all it takes is a conversation. Clearly, I don't want to have an unhinged maniac coming on. So I already screwed up by inviting Anthony on. But Anthony, thanks for coming on the show. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself? Anthony's been on before, by the way, boys and girls, but it's been a minute or two. So go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, it's been quite a bit. I'm just a regular guy, pretty much who's typically in the chat. And like Mark said, I purchase gear. We have a lot of fun dialogue from time to time, and it's really nice to be able to interact with everybody. And the other panelists on past shows, it was really fun to interact with them, and it's always a great time being around this community. So I'm all about it. I'm enjoying it.
And speaking of community, and this is a great thing that Anthony's done. Now, we didn't publish these. We tried this last year. We'll try it again this year. Anthony has been doing some of his own videos using this software, making fire starting kits, things like this. We don't know what we don't know, and you've got to start someplace. So stay tuned. I'd like to, and I guess I just kind of sprung that on Anthony. Didn't mean to ambush you there, sir. But those were good videos, and it's nice to see other people shooting the segment saying, hey, so I'm trying to do this, and here's what I'm experiencing, and here's what it is. So, it doesn't always have to be me talking, and it's just the same for everybody. But then the other thing, though, so Anthony's already done that over in our gear chat. And if you want to join the gear chat, just reach out to me. I can send you a link. It's on the Telegram app. But I also post videos there first before I release them on X or Rumble or, or ScrewTube, any of that. So the guys over in the chat get to see them first, make comments. So it's a pretty fun place. There's some jokes over there. Other people are sharing information. So if you're interested, want to join the gear chat, I don't know what it is, Anthony. What is it 20 some people on the chat, give or take,
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah, something like that. So, and before I forget, I don't want to screw it up like I did last time. Oh, did you download that app that George had on his phone, by the way? No. Oh, I got to download that. Triple X, where are you? Where are you, Triple X? But I screwed up on my jokes last time. And so we're going to do, just on that same note, we're going to do it a little different. I'm going to end it with a joke from Steve L. Sent me, a bunch of jokes over time. And now one of you and you might be watching right now. His name is Corbett. Corbett sent me a bunch of jokes. So we're going to introduce some of Corbett's jokes. Now, his are dad jokes as well, but these are more like the redneck dad joke or something. I don't know what to say. And so there's one about a donkey and an onion. I'm going to save that for later. There's a guy walking down the road with a grandfather clock, because that's what we see all the time. I'm going to save that for later. Here's the one I think everybody will like and appreciate it right off the bat. Hey, Anthony, do you know why divorces are so expensive?
No, why is that?
Because they are worth it. Thank you, Corbett. If I was here, I'm going to take my hat off. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Well, some of those are good. We're going to use some more. All right. There was our joke for the night. And let me just say this, boys and girls. So as we kind of jump into it here, so we're going to talk about disclosure, right? Because that's kind of been making the news in lieu of, in addition to all the other stuff that's going on, impending war. I thought we weren't getting into wars, but, and that is probably going to come up through the course of the conversation because, what's really going on here. So we're going to talk about disclosure. And as the title kind of alludes to, disclosure or deception. And I'll just kind of put the bottom line up front. I think it's all BS. And before you start throwing me under the bus or whatever, let me finish. I know in my heart of hearts, of course, there's life somewhere else in this, in the known universe. The known universe was created by God, right? That, so again, I'm a Christian, so this will come in later too. We'll bring in Christianity into all this. But, there's no way. There's billions of other solar systems, billions, even more billions of planets. It's pretty naive to think that we're the only thing. And I know somebody's going to say, well, the Bible, this, the Bible, that. All right, just hang on. We want to have fun. So have an open mind. This is a good, fun conversation. We're going to bring up a whole bunch of different issues, and religion is going to be one of them, because, we can trace it all the way back to what was that blue book they did in the 60s. I can't remember if that was Rand, who, again, just go do your own research. But, the government reached out. Hey, if we told everybody about this, what would happen? And their recommendation was, don't tell anybody. It's going to freak everybody out. Well, okay, maybe that was true in the 60s. That's nowhere near true now. So disclosure, what the hell does that even mean? My argument is going to be that it's all going to be deception. But that doesn't, so again, two things can be true at the same time, but that doesn't mean that there's not alien life. That doesn't mean that there's not interdimensional beings, spiritual beings, and by no shape, form, or fashion does that even remotely make me doubt my faith. It actually buoys. It's buoyant. It buoys. It raises. It elevates. It supports my faith that, of course, there's God, the creator. I mean, and it's pretty naive and silly to think we're the only ones. So that's what tonight's going to be about. We're going to get into some, nuts and bolts. That was my intro. And that was my joke. Learn me something. I heard you laughing. So why don't you start off with a comment, and then we're going to go into the heart of it. But first off, what do you think about that joke?
Yeah, it's pretty good. But I just want to actually do a mild disclaimer. So just to get everybody pretty much on board. None of us really know the truth. We're simply all brainstorming. We're discussing. Tonight we're going to discuss some theories and attempt to seek the truth together. Right. So there should be no arguments in the chat. People bickering or whatever else. Because what we need to do is be open-minded and explore every angle, every avenue. And since anything is possible these days, as we know, so many different moving parts are going on at any given time, we must pick up tidbits of knowledge wherever we can. So just remember that nobody has the answers, and or really knows everything with 100% certainty. So the whole thing is, we're just going to throw some crap at the wall and see where it lands for the most part. We'll discuss a bunch of different theories, and I think that should be interesting. And to piggyback off of what Mark just said, with regard to God, there's two different schools of thought that you could have related to whether God is the creator. Now, once he created us, did he cease creating, or did he continue to create? And those are really the two different things. The two different distinctions that we want to bounce both things around, right? Some people think.
Well, slow down. Let's. Yeah, no, you're right. Let's save that for a little bit later. Let's get some of the other things off the table first, though.
Okay.
Right. But because look, you can already see. We're going to probably spend about, half of this podcast kind of just delving into how would any of this even remotely, challenge your belief, your religion, maybe some religions, it would challenge your belief system, but, and it's all right because we don't know everything, but we'll get into that. So, hey, boys and girls, if you're watching us live, to Anthony's point, get in the chat. I really want to, if I can, I'd like to try to answer a bunch of questions tonight. I'd like to hear other people's opinions, as Anthony just did a way better job than I did. We're spitballing here. We're throwing things against the wall. We're going to try to have fun with it. It's an incredibly interesting conversation. I mean, it just is. Disclosure. life on alien, on other planets, somewhere out within our galaxy or other galaxies. I mean, if you follow this kind of stuff, we don't know the first thing about anything, really, right? So I like what you said, Anthony, and I appreciate that. So let's just keep an open mind, but make comments in the chat. And if you do want to yell at somebody, yell at Anthony, right? Because he's got big filters. He's got his beard has definitely improved. That's some strong beard going on right there, All right, let's get the obvious stuff out. Let's start with this. So the title, disclosure or deception. You can tell I'm kind of already jaded. There's not a single thing this government or any previous government in America, and I really don't see a future government actually telling you the truth about disclosure. And I'm just going to let that sit for a second. No matter what they say they're going to say to us, no matter what they say to us, do you believe anything? This is the same administration, just like so many other administrations, that says there's nothing to see in the P files. There's, it was just one guy doing it all by himself. Well, then why is she in jail? She's in jail for trafficking. Well, what? So you're claiming she trafficked all those children just for, Jeffrey? So we already know that there's been so many efforts throughout the history of the United States. And unfortunately, it probably about since World War II. I mean, you could really take it back, in my opinion, and I don't want to get too much into some of these esoteric weeds. There's a tons of people and there's so many different directions you could go with this, phenomenon. I mean, you could talk about remote viewing and, some of those names and the circumstances behind their demise. And, so there's a lot to do. And it's the same thing when you start going down the conspiracy theory, which let's just call them conspiracy facts. They keep coming out to be true. More conspiracy theorists are batting 1,000 right now. I mean, but we've had so much technology that people have worked on throughout time, and then they mysteriously die, or they die of natural causes, and then somehow all of the stuff in their shop is gone. So we know that these things happen. So we know that deception has played a major role in not just our government, but in most governments. And there have been whistleblowers that have come out. And so I'm just going to make one statement, and then I'll pause, and we'll just keep going with this kind of first line of reasoning. But I don't trust any of those whistleblowers. There's the one guy, his last name starts with an L, and he was part of the whole ATIP program or whatever. He's still got an NDA. He's still on the disclaimer. The other guy who came up and testified before Congress, he couldn't tell you things, or he was only able to tell the things that he was cleared to say. Well, then you're not a whistleblower. Because I know exactly what I can say in relation to my time in the CIA. I know exactly what I can and cannot say, and I know how I can dance around some things. I know some things are now open source, and, I still kind of get a little wishy-washy, like, oh, should I talk about it? It's all open source, but still, I might say something wrong. But that's not how that works. If I was part of a secret program that was illegal, unconstitutional, killing people, allowing, citizens to be kidnapped for testing or whatever the case is, I in good conscience, I couldn't be quiet about that. I'd be like, hey man, this is wrong. So and Gene will like this, so unless the answer is we really are truly ruled by lizard people, and they're telling, all the world leaders, you're going to, shut the F up and go along with the program, or we destroy your planet. Well, do you shut the F up and go along with it and let them kidnap and torture and do, run experiments on humans? Or do you say, no, I'm going to die on my feet, or I'm going to live on my knees? So maybe that's a good place to go into it. I think it's all going to be deception. You can kind of get a little sense of, the spices I'm putting in my dish. I'll shut up and bring it over to Anthony now. Deception or disclosure, Anthony? Do you think they'll tell us the truth, or what do you think?
It's
and yes or no, and why?
Yeah, it's doubtful that they'll tell us the truth. What they'll probably do is dump a ton of different files that have a lot of garbage in them, and it'll essentially say the same things that we've known for years. It'll have the same level of disclosure. The one curveball that could be to where they maybe disclose something, and this is a very off chance, that they disclose something in order to draw a parallel between those entities and what's going on with Epstein. Because there is some sort of a correlation in certain types of behaviors and activities and things like that. So there is the slight possibility, but I highly doubt that there's going to be any sort of legitimate disclosure.
Yeah, I agree. And when we get into the spiritual side, I think, that can maybe, like you just said, well, there's a chance maybe they'll do this for these reasons, but it'll still be deception because it'll still be telling half truths or obfuscating the truth or, failing to tell the truth in order to push an agenda. So let me just go back to let me take it back a step. So here's my logic. If the United States government or any government, well, see, maybe that's not true. Maybe there is a government out there someplace where there is a benign, dictator who really does, want to share and make the world a better place. I mean, possibly, but just right there. I mean, just so again, so to put numbers into your mathematical, your brain housing group equation. Well, who would disclose it and why? First and foremost, what would be your motivation for providing disclosure? And is disclosure 100% disclosure? Is a little bit of disclosure? Because my argument is if you don't do 100% disclosure, like I'll give you an example. Like if I was the president, which I should be, but I don't ever want to run for any office. But if I was king for a day, I'd come out and just say, hey, look, man, I was the president once. I didn't know these things then. I definitely learned my lessons. I can't speak for any other president before me, why they didn't know it, or if they did know, I can't speak for any of that. But here's what I know, and here's what we're going to release to the world. Because if they come out and say, yeah, there are, aliens from, Alpha Centauri, and they've been here like tall whites or grays, or if they go down that type of road, reptilians, they're going to have to explain everything. And the moment you start explaining everything, it's just going to open you up to a million questions. Well, what was Roswell? What was, New York? What was, Texas? What, like all of these other crash sites or these other events. Where's that technology? Is it true? How did we get fiber optics in the microchip? It's just going to open up. And if you go down that road and you tell one sliver of truth and you try to still hide and maintain everything else in a cloak of secrecy, you're going to pull a Dan Bongino and you're going to lose all credibility and no one's going to listen to you or care about anything you say ever again. It just will be. Because if you tell us they exist, now this is if they are actually biological sentient, beings, right? Physical beings, not a being that can maneuver in through different dimensions and maybe present a solid form. But I'm talking a living, breathing, whether it breathes hydrogen or oxygen, but something flesh and blood, to use that term, like me and you. The moment, if that's where they're going to go with this, then you better back that up with 0-point energy, anti-gravitics, the whole 9 yards. And your story better be 100% true, or you're going to go down and you're going to be ridiculed like there's no tomorrow. Everybody, that's what will cause people to lose face. That'll be like the final, in my opinion, excuse me for the vulgarity, you're peeing on my head and telling me it's raining moment. And maybe that's what we need, to wake everybody up. But so there's my first point. They're not going to do it because to do it correctly and to satisfy all the people who've been paying attention and all the evidence that's out there, to do that correctly, they'd have to admit everything. And that's going to be everything and really what we're talking about is technology. Look, the truth is most people won't care who these aliens are, where they come from. They might care while they're here. We're going to want to know why I'm paying for energy, why I'm not, already colonizing Mars and volunteering to be one of the, the people who goes to colonize Mars, or why I don't have a little, cube like this in my house that powers, my house and electricity and everything for the rest of my life. And, I buy it once for $50 or it's free type of thing. All right, Anthony, go ahead, sir.
All right. So to the energy part, why we don't have free energy? Control. They want to be able to control what it is that we do, our movements, and our economic situation. Why? Because if we had free energy, we would be a free people. We'd be able to make our own choices. The whole thing that's done by governments is to constantly keep you feeling uncomfortable, uneasy, on edge, financially strapped. If you're
Unhealthy.
concerned about the day to day, you can't worry about what it is that they're doing. That behind the scenes that actually is having an impact on your day to day. So you're thinking small picture versus big picture. So that's one thing related to that. And then going back to the disclosure, with regard to disclosure, they will, if they had to tell you that there were actual sentient beings that were here and they have all this vast technology, they would also have to disclose, well, yeah, we've been using that technology. The question that we should then pose is, well, what do you have to give them in return? Clearly they must want something. There's no way that put it this way, there are very few individuals that will ever give up something and not ask for something in return. We know that with government, we know that with individuals that we've dealt with in our lives, we know that with every facet of life. There's always some kind of string attached, or at least for the most part, there are strings attached. So if they did disclose something like that, that should be the first question that every single individual should ask is, hey, what exactly do you have to do to placate these people to keep them happy so that they keep feeding you new technologies, or maybe they teach you things about health or agriculture or something like that. I mean, there are a multitude of things. If these are highly advanced entities, what is it that we could learn from them? But on the flip side, what do we have to give them?
I want that, again, I hope everybody gets that and, lets that sink in. If you haven't thought about that before, what's the price? And if you just use that, phrase it as, well, what's the price for this technology? What's the price for you not wiping out our planet, or whatever the case is? So if we just take it back to technology, and let's say it wasn't an actual deal, but, again, if you're into this folklore, there's rumors that Eisenhower met with, aliens. I'm just going to use the term aliens. I'm not not going to try to be UAP and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's aliens, right? Actual, like, sentient, physical beings. Um, so that was kind of like the myth, or the, however you want to say it, right? The folklore behind it. And, there was a deal that was made, and that's kind of why Eisenhower made his, his very famous, the military industrial complex, because that would go to what Anthony's alluding to, like, hey, we're getting some things in return. Well, okay, well, what's the cost? No one just gives you stuff for free. Now, that's our very human worldview. Maybe, a species that has the ability to, to travel interdimensionally, or just even, amongst solar systems, on a galactic or solar system type of level. Well, that's, maybe a more advanced, species. And like, so I'll throw Dr. Greer out there. If you follow Dr. Greer, that's kind of his belief system, is that, hey, these creatures aren't harmful and da da da. So, if his view is right, well, maybe they have given some technology to us, and they've done so freely because they want to see our species grow and all that. That's possible. But again, the other cost, it isn't just maybe what we have to give them, but to, Anthony, to your point, I want to circle back to this. So again, the only way there's going to be true disclosure is going to take somebody who's got some bravery. And it really isn't even a whole lot of bravery, in my humble opinion, but you're going to have somebody who has some bravery, because, everybody's going to, oh my gosh, what would this do? It would tear down our whole economic system and whatever. I'm like, no, it wouldn't. Unless that alien species is going to show up tomorrow with a whole bunch of Amazon trucks and deliver everything to everybody, this would take time. Look, and the leaders of industry would have time to restructure and retool their factories for whatever this new thing is that we have to produce. And again, and if you had any of these technologies, so no matter where you come in on the spectrum, whether it's like faster than light travel, or just anti-gravitic, or, you've got a Jetsons food processor and you never have to go to the grocery store again, whatever that level of technology is, what is it they're sharing, and what, and if we've had it, why hasn't it been shared with the gen pop, right? With all of us, us petty serfs, right? Us little people who aren't supposed to think about stuff, because that's where I'm going to go immediately. And, and you would see people saying, oh, this will destroy our society. No, it won't. Amoco isn't going away tomorrow. Walmart, whatever that industry is that you're thinking of, it's not going to go away tomorrow. All of these things would take time. I mean, just look at our industrial revolutions, right? And just look at, the advent of to where we are now. Again, don't forget, these things weren't here. Like, well, they were here 10 years ago, but, like at 2000, at the turn of this, this century, that's supposed to be my cell phone if you can't see it in the dark. But, very few people had cell phones, and there was very different. I mean, look, that technology, it's very impressive, but it's taken time to grow and diffuse, to spread throughout the system that is our society. If we had anti-gravitic technology, and if a brave man stood up and said, yeah, I'm going to let everybody have this. Yeah, don't worry. We know a couple secrets because we've had it longer, and, and we're going to make sure we can protect our country. But yeah, no, if everybody hang on, calm down, in about a year to 2 years, yeah, your life is going to be completely different. And like you said, Anthony, and maybe there's medical advances and agricultural advances, things that we're not even implementing yet, because we've just got government types looking at the technology, as opposed to crazy, what's the doctor from Back to the Future? We need crazy science. We need
Doc Brown.
Doc Brown. We need Doc Browns and innovative thinkers who could look at it from a different angle and realize some of its other, health benefits or societal benefits. So if you had a brave person, I think you could do it, but you have to be 100% open, pull no punches. Hey, I'm the president now. I found out about it, and I'm letting you guys all forget about blaming people in the past. I don't know why they didn't tell you. I'm not even sure if they knew about it. But here we are, and I'm telling you about it right now. This is going to be made public. I've already been in concert with, other world leaders. And, yeah, and it's going to be a little tumultuous. Some people are going to lose jobs. Some industries are going to crash. I mean, well, then, if you were smart enough to create that industry, figure out how to create another industry using your already, your archetype or your architecture, the backbone behind your existing industry, and convert over. Or maybe you won't be able to convert over. Oh, but then the stock market will crash. How many of us are in the stock market? I mean, that isn't the majority of us. Sorry, why am I always being told I have to be concerned about people who've got a shit ton more money than I do?
Because
I don't begrudge them having their money. Don't get me wrong. I don't begrudge them that, but I have to suffer more so they don't lose more money. No. So that's kind of one. It's not my full argument, but that's to break it down. That's why we're never going to see disclosure, because I don't think there's anybody in government who's brave enough to really do it, because the ramifications for me and yous, to Anthony's point, it goes against everything that those people stand for, because they don't stand for me and you. They stand for themselves. They stand for the military industrial complex. They stand for the prison complex, the health industry complex, the pharmaceutical complex. They are all about making their money that way. And if they, as Anthony said, if we suddenly all had access to it, and we really truly would be equal, and we'd all have more time on our hands to pursue our own pursuits, education, I'm here to tell you, they would not be able to process enough people who would volunteer to go and set up a base on Moon or try to, colonize Mars. There'd be millions of people who right now, if they had they'd volunteer. Yeah, you're never coming back to planet Earth. Yeah, I got that. That's all right. You're going to die there. Yeah, dude, you already had me at a hello. Quit selling it to me. I'm going to go live on Mars for the rest of my life. So yeah, they're not going to do it. And for those reasons right there, and they'll lose too much control. And there's not a government out there, to include America, who's willing to give up control and give up their power. Look at that State of the Union last night. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, red team or blue team. Look at how disgusting that was. Do you think any of those people know or think or care about me and yous? Not at all. They're not going to give that freedom. They're not going to give up that power, period. So that's my little kind of final comment on my first argument. Let me let Anthony respond, and then we'll keep going from there. Come
Yeah,
on. I really thought we'd see some comments, in the chat. Chatsters, where are you guys tonight?
Yeah, we want to hear some. We want to see some of your theories.
Yeah, come on. I want to hear about lizard people and stuff.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, take the time out to jump out of the chat, give it a like, and then come back in. That way, people know that there's a live going on, and more people could potentially jump on. But
he's not wrong. He's not wrong.
But getting back to disclosure, so they'll never want to disclose the truth. The truth will actually be scary for people. But well, let's say it could potentially be scary for people because theoretically, and I kind of believe this theory. I highly doubt that these entities are intergalactic Santa Clauses. I highly doubt that we would be getting that free lunch, so to speak, based upon different. I mean, there are tons of different resources out there, and a lot of conflicting things. But some of the things that you see out there, you hear about these scenarios where people talk about how the grays, those gray aliens, as they like to call them, are able to harvest X amount of people per year or something like that. Or, that there are entities that like to do experimentation on people or consume people. So we don't know, right? We don't know about the validity of any of these things, but we know that there's chatter. And sometimes when there's enough chatter out there's got to be little tidbits of truth in them to where you go, well, why is it that there are a ton of different cultures that talk about reptilian entities that come out of portals and that, teach people sorcery and different things that can, at that point, open up additional portals, and then other entities come in, and those entities cannibalize human beings or take the women as their own, and all of these different things, because you'll see that in the Apaches, you'll see that in I believe, I don't remember if it was the Sumerians or if it was certain other Native American tribes where they had seen they had a very similar story to where you have these different creatures coming out and essentially victimizing the people to where they have to fight back, and in some cases they have to flee an entire area. So, I mean, these types of things are all over the place. But the one common theme is that these entities, far more sophisticated, but they tend to subjugate people. Even if they don't necessarily always consume people, they subjugate them. So who knows if this is one of the reasons why they'll never disclose these things, or maybe all these theories that people have been espousing, or these mythologies that people have been discussing, maybe they're all BS. Who knows? But those are the types of things that are out there in, when you do research, when you go on the internet or you watch certain documentaries. So, I mean.
Well, and on that note, Anthony, real quickly, each individual has to make their own moral decision here, to be able to, start exploring our solar system, looking at colonizing or getting a base up on the moon, or, trying to, colonize Mars and, and convert its, atmosphere, or start to create an atmosphere again. Or you now have seriously that little cube and it powers your house and you never have to pay another power bill the rest of your life, Each individual is going to have to make that decision. What's your moral compass? What's your moral threshold? How many human beings have to get sacrificed if what Anthony is saying is correct? And again, this isn't just modern. If you go back through time, if this is a subject you're interested in, you already know what we're talking about. There are so many ancient cultures that have these same very similar stories, or almost the exact story. And there's a price to be paid. And not all of these species, quote unquote, are the same. Some are a little bit more malevolent, some are benevolent, it kind of back and forth. but throughout all of them, there is a theme of subjugation. There is a theme of like, we are the ant underneath somebody's boot, and we kind of are, especially if you can travel across, great distances like that, or if you've got, whether it's faster than light or wormhole type of technologies. How many people, how many human beings, how many fellow people from your society, your family, your country, or the planet are you willing to let these people harvest, or these creatures, entities harvest, in exchange for you having, free energy? I mean, that's a moral quandary right there. And I mean, I know the answer to me, it's zero. It's a zero sum game. But that's because, maybe because my military background and whatnot, like you don't leave anybody behind. And that's a serious comment, a great book about a science fiction book about future humanity, Starship Troopers. And that book, he's in high school in this scene in the book. The movie was bullshit. I know some people like it because there was naked girls in the shower. I don't know about you, but I've seen naked women before, and I don't need to see it in a movie for the movie to be good. I opened myself up for a joke there, but we'll move on past that. No, I mean, but there's a scene, where they're having a discussion in this philosophy class that all students had to go through. And this was exactly the question that's brought up. At what point do you surrender or sign the peace treaty or give up the war if the enemy still has 100 of your men, 1,000 of your men, and they use the Korean War as an example in this? At what point do you just say like, yeah, we'll just condemn those men to their deaths, or whatever cruel fate awaits them? And the answer from a moral and philosophical perspective is it has to be zero. It has to be zero. So for me, I mean, that's the answer to Anthony, to your question. It's like, no, I will continue. I'd rather go back to, living off the land and having closer family networks and societal networks. I'd be okay with that. And we're back on horses. I don't, cars. I don't need a Tesla or any of that kind of stuff. Now, I'd love a jetpack. I ain't gonna lie, that'd be awesome, right? A little jetpack, but I'm not going to sacrifice any of you for me to have that. I mean, that's just incredibly selfish, and you've got no moral compass, no sense of, honor or pride or community or dedication or commitment, however you want to phrase it. So Anthony, I think that's, because you started trending into, there's a moral side here that we're going to have to consider. And I would argue that that's part of one of my first arguments why we're not going to get disclosure, because you're going to talk about moral issues that the people who are going to make these decisions have zero morals at all. And we've seen that. We're in America today. Your government is concealing P files, is actively resisting bringing men and women to justice for horrendous, horrible, monstrous, evil freaking acts perpetrated against children.
Yeah.
We're not doing shit. So you think they're going to let you have 0-point technology? To think you're going to be driving around a little Jetsons car, no, not going to happen. Period. Yeah. Anthony, you want to come back on that one? Man, it's already 40 minutes and I have no idea. Like, I feel like we just barely even been talking. Oh.
Yeah. When it comes to this kind of stuff, I mean, it's very odd because it kind of does tie into the Epstein, type of stuff. And the reason why I say that is when you hear about these stories about these otherworldly entities, the same kind of stuff happens as what's been occurring in those files. So in those files, I mean, you've got humans consuming other humans. Now, where would you learn something like that? Where would that even pop into somebody's mind to even do that, or to gain strength or a life force from another individual through adrenochrome harvesting or whatever else? Where would something like that come from?
Hey, and don't go any further. Don't go any further. No, Anthony. Let me just interject one thing and then continue. So as we transition into, okay, so maybe they're not actual creatures and these are interdimensional spiritual beings. Go ahead, Anthony. Because I think that's where you were already going.
What I would say, Yeah, what I would say is as a very generic term, because not to fall into one lane or another, we could call them non-human entities as a blanket, but those categories could be aliens, interdimensional beings, a whole host of things, because at the end of the day, we have no idea. We really don't know.
Yep.
So if we were to just call them non-human entities, that might be sufficient enough as a category to stick with. But that being said, that's where a lot of these very evil practices seem to be coming from, or have had some sort of an origin, or something that was taught to individuals, because the the elites, as we always like to call them, they're involved in a lot of weird occult practices, ritualistic practices. Now there has to be something that they serve. Now, if what are they serving? I would say probably at the top of that pyramid is most likely these non-human entities. Just based upon research. Do I say that that's 100% what I believe? No, but that's a way to look at it. So if you were to try to make sense of all of the chaos that's going on with all of the evil that we see in this world, and how there are tons of people that never get held accountable for the ills that they do to their common man, or to children, or even worse, babies. And you
Yeah.
just go, what kind of a sadistic person would ever do that, willingly? And a lot of the time they do it for power, youth, influence, wealth, because they're psychopathic in nature. These people don't have human empathy, compassion, any of those things. They're broken. They're people that are missing elements of humanity within them. So they're incapable of having those normal human emotions. All they care about is power, money, and influence. They want to be able to do what they want when they want, and subjugate somebody in order for them to feel better about themselves.
And
These
have no
are
consequences for
broken
their
people,
actions.
hollow people.
Yeah, and no consequences for their actions.
Yeah, absolutely. No consequences, because they make sure that they install all of their weird little cronies that think exactly the way that they are in every facet of life, whether it be local law enforcement, or your local city council, or your state representatives, your federal corporations, everywhere. They make sure. And a lot of these things, these are things that I've picked up doing research over the past few days, and re-researching things that I had consumed earlier on, whether it be videos or books. And I do have to give credit to certain other channels, and like Man in America, that was going over some stuff. I know Jack was doing a great job with regard to going into deep dives on the e-files as well. And there are just so many different moving parts, but sometimes it takes looking at all of these things and saying, wow, that's eerily similar to the phenomena that's going on with these non-human entities, whether they be interdimensional beings, uh, fallen entities, or merely aliens. So any one of those things, and you just see there's these weird common threads: the vampirism, all of the odd, spooky, mythological things that we've read about or seen in movies over the years, through our formative years even. And finally it's coming to roost when we read the e-files, and we see this and we go, wow, that's bizarre. That's really bizarre. So yeah, I'm not saying that I'm wedded to any particular thing, but it's starting to kind of coalesce to a point where you have to say anything really is possible these days. Anything.
Well, and so right there, don't go any further. Anything's possible. It's possible that there's interdimensional beings and that there is alien life on, Zeta Reticuli, or Alpha Centauri, or, pick a star, right? Booties or whatever, right? All of this is possible. And one doesn't rule out the other. So I want to make one comment, and then I want to come back to you because I think the direction you're going, we might as well just keep going with it. Well, actually, so two quick comments. So again, just to reiterate where we are, the government's not going to give you full disclosure. They're too evil, they're too corrupted, they're too cowardly, and this has been potentially going on too long. Now, there is one scenario in which they may give some disclosure, but I'm going to get to that in a second because it feeds into what Anthony was just saying. There might be a slight argument like, we're subservient to them. And I know there's arguments that the Tic Tacs are actually skunk works. Those are human-made vehicles built using alien technology that we either recovered or were given by alien species. And when these aliens come to our planet, it's like a rental car, like they get a free, free courtesy car to cruise around in, right? So there's that argument. Well, I would still go back to my beginning moral kind of argument. But well, then we're not free, and we aren't, American citizens with inalienable rights, God-given rights. Our government has, bent the knee, so to speak, and has allowed us to be played, used. Go back to Anthony's earlier comments, and at what cost? If it's one person, I guess if you want to voluntarily sacrifice yourself, but I don't want anyone to even have to make that decision, unless, I don't know. I mean, you do you. No, I'm willing to sacrifice myself so humanity can have, free microwave popcorn for the rest of their life. I mean, I guess, you do you, but so there are some slight other arguments, but I think, on the surface, they pale and they fall short. I think what we're probably going to see, this is just my bet. Let's just mark this. It's the 25th of February. It's 1850 Central Standard Time. No, I think they're going to say that these are interdimensional beings and that these beings can manifest into our spectrum. I'll just say spectrum because, that's, the visual spectrum is more than just what you and I see. There's a, wide variety. You guys all know that, right? So they can manifest themselves into our spectrum. Some technologies can pick them up. Some humans can see them. Sometimes they manifest into the actual visible light spectrum, and we can see them, Roy G. Biv type of stuff. I mean, I think it's going to be an argument like that because that's the way that they can say, yeah, these things you see exist, but we can't control them. We don't know what they are, and we've not gotten a single bit of technology out of them. And I think that is going to be done. That's the rope-a-dope. That's evil making excuses and justifying. And Anthony, this is where I want to turn it back over to you because that just will give them justification. It'll be there will be elements who will use it to attack Christianity. There will be elements that will use it to attack just basic humanity. And it'll be used by very powerful elites to justify all the actions that they have been doing or that they want to continue perpetrating. Now, my final comment before I turn to Anthony, I'm going to let him run for about the last 20 minutes or so, is, as a Christian, well, and or obvious, there's interdimensional beings, or however you want to phrase that, there's fallen angels, Nephilim. I mean, Anunnaki, yeah, duh, and or obvious, well, the Bible actually does talk about this. And to Anthony's point, Jack is very well researched in biblical studies. And I don't mean the BS stuff. I mean, and Anthony is very well researched, and so are a bunch of you guys and gals who are watching this. I've talked to a bunch of you. You know what you're talking about. I'm a lay person, but I just know it here and here. Well, yeah, of course this exists. I mean, we just had a huge snowstorm. You guys out, east are you just had a huge snowstorm. Or it's a beautiful night and the wind's blowing through the trees. Of course there's a God. It's he is all around me all the time. And evil manifests itself. Again, fallen angels. I mean, yeah, well, of course there's that. So you're not actually disclosing anything that I think, in my opinion, and again, this is where I don't want to get people picking up and yelling at me. Well, the Bible doesn't say this and you don't know. Yeah, you're probably right. But the Bible wasn't written for the whole galaxy or the known universe. It was written for mankind. you know, why are you going to sit and talk about, you know, some of these things that don't really pertain to us? Well, now they do, but that's the Bible wasn't written like, oh, and by the way, you know, 5,000 years from now, you're going to run into a species called the, the jerkwads, keep an eye out for them, you know what I'm saying? So Anthony, I'm going to kind of shut it up on that point, but yeah, I think that's what we're going to see. They're going to try to, shine us on, say it's some kind of interdimensional, transdimensional type of thing. And again, well, yeah, that's what Satan is. That's what evil is. That's what the fall. I mean, like, you haven't told me anything there, brother. You're using it as an excuse, and I think that'll be a further attack at an attempt to erode Christianity. And that note, I'm going to shut up and bring it over to you and take her away, boss. We're at the 50-minute mark, so why don't you run for however long you want, and then, as always, hey, boys and girls, and I'm not going to keep trying to put a time limit on it. We do want to keep it short, around an hour. But, these have all been going about an hour and 15. So just, if it goes that long, buckle in. I hope you're enjoying it. I'm going to shut up, like I said, for the third time and actually do it, though, and let Anthony talk. Go ahead, sir. Your beard is so awesome, Gandalf. You are Gandalf right now.
See, what I think might be plausible in their fake disclosure is that, like you said, they'll discuss these interdimensional beings or whatever else. But they have all of this technology at their disposal. And I'm just talking about mankind, to where just with AI, they could con us and make us think that something occurred that didn't really occur. Not that anybody has to witness it physically, because all they really have to do is let the media run with it. And all the sheep just believe everything that they say. So what is plausible is they could say, well, there are these interdimensional beings. They get Hollywood or somebody that's really well-versed in AI to put something together. They roll that footage on every network.
Right now, hang on. Hecklefish would talk about Kubrick's moon landing video. He would have been, imagine yeah. Hecklefish would have been, oh, you mean like Stanley Kubrick and the moon landing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right
something just like that.
Yep.
And then what you do is you sell everybody on, oh, these are much more sophisticated beings, and all of these religions, they're false. What you need to do is you need to follow this religion because that's what these entities believe in. And this is the truth, and when we do that, we pledge our fealty then to that religion, which is then run by the government. And you have your system in place for your one world government, your one world religion, your one world currency. And you have every mechanism then to control everyone the way that you want to, so that they no longer have a say, because they have to mindlessly believe and follow. Because if they don't mindlessly believe and follow, they won't be able to buy and sell. They won't be able to feed their families. They won't be able to do anything because their social credit score says that they're low on funds right now. They're not going to be able to get anything. They're not going to be able to use public transportation, pay a heat bill in the wintertime. So this is a way of them being able to control and punish anybody who doesn't toe the line. Because at the end of the day, it's all about centralizing power. And that's most likely the mechanism that they would use. That's the ruse that they would push upon us, so that they can do that. Because let's face it, I don't trust any of these people. I don't trust any political party, because they're all compromised. Every single one of them is compromised, and it's by design. You need compromised people in those positions if you're the evil overlords, because you can fully control those people. You give them a little bit of power, a little bit of scratch in the account, but at the end of the day, they're not going to upset the apple cart. They're not going to do anything. They're just going to go along and toe the party line. Why? Because if they so much as step out of line, you reveal that video footage of them being a diddler or consuming blood or whatever weird stuff that they've got on them. And that person is essentially blacklisted at that point, and they're done. If not, then they'll probably take care of it through other means, more violent means, as they sometimes do. But I'm more inclined to believe that that would be the case, that they would con us all, and the foolish people will follow everything, believe the story, believe all of the hype surrounding it, and just toe the line. And then there will be some people that, of course, will not necessarily believe this stuff, not really want to give in, but will, out of self-preservation, because that's always a mechanism. That's always another reason why people bend the knee. It's self-preservation always ends up being a component of that for some people. So you'll have some people that just believe it, some people that will bend the knee out of convenience because they don't want to be inconvenienced and don't want to feel discomfort. And then you'll have the people that stand strong and say, no, I'm not buying it. I'm not doing it. And unfortunately, they'll have to clash with the authority, and most likely lose. But
no, that's it's only funny because it's true and it's really effed up. But it really, this has the potential to be like almost like a game changer. Like it's going to be hard to stop that. That rock, that stone that's rolling down the hill if they go down that direction. And if we all see it around us. Look what happened during the whole COOF. Look at how many people just trust the science. Look at that mantra and look at how many people went along with that bullshit. And no one's been held accountable. There's people out there who aren't even hanging their head in shame for what they did during that period of time. Yeah, there's so many people, Anthony, who's just gonna they'll just suck it up, buttercup, and go right along with it.
Yeah, the one main thing though, out of anything, because all of these types of things seem to be very almost Luciferian in nature to some extent. And we always have a choice. We have to consent. We have to buy in. If we don't consent or buy in, then we have a way of repelling the entire thing. But if we just brush it under the rug, ignore it, or just say, oh no, it's fine, to make excuses, then these are the types of things that will just unfold, and then we will be stuck in a system. The more we voice our displeasure, the more we just say no up front before something is fully implemented, the more they have to backtrack and ease off. Because if we don't do that, they're going full steam ahead, and they're gonna push it and ram it down our throats the first chance they get. So you have to be of that mindset to want to repel these types of things, be vocal about these things, and say, you know what? No, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to comply. And that's not what I want for my life. If you can somehow find a way to extract yourself from the system, that's probably your best bet. To create a community of like-minded people, that's probably your best bet, because individuals can't do anything alone. They need a community. They need people with which to do commerce with, to barter with, to break bread with, to interact with and have good times with, and to share sorrows with. This is what the human condition is all about. Like we need to get back to that. We need individuals to get back to wanting to be part of a community and part of the human condition, versus being on social media, living in big cities close to people, but couldn't be farther apart from people because they were in their own little silos, or they're on their phones and computers and stuff. They need to interact with people. They need to get to know their neighbors. They need to have that human emotion with each other and just interact and just care about each other, have each other's backs. That's what really moves the needle. And that's what repels evil. Evil doesn't like that kind of stuff. Evil doesn't like when, when we're positive and we interact with people and we show love and compassion toward one another. Evil hates that stuff and it recoils. So it's in our best interest to just try to, as this, to some people, this might sound all kind of hippie and stuff like that, but honestly, it just makes a lot more sense. And if you care about your common man, you're not going to end up having that friction between each other. Because if you legitimately care about each other, you're not going to try to hurt each other.
Now, I'm a little bit more black-pilled than Anthony. I don't disagree with anything he just said. I'm just going to throw my little, sprinkle my little, seasoning in there, which is just be prepared for that not to happen and not to work. But, but that doesn't take away in any form or fashion what Anthony said. Seek out those individuals who think that way. Seek out those opportunities. And, and if you go down, but that's how you went down is being that person and treating it, following those guidelines, having faith, having a belief, believing in something, standing up for those belief, what you believe in, and, and not a belief that's a lie, right? That's grounded in, look around us, boys and girls. We see it happening every frickin' day. Oh, if you're not on team red, you suck. If you're not on team blue, then I'm going to kill you. Oh, if you're not on team red, you're a communist. If you're not on team blue, I'm going to kill you. All of this is designed to tear us apart. I was just talking to an individual earlier today, a customer, and I was running an errand. So I had to step inside a store, and there was two ladies in there, like my age, a little bit, maybe a little older. And they're having a conversation, and I'm a little bit of a smart ass. So I came in, you love it when you come in on the end of a conversation and the only thing you heard was just enough to be like, wow, what did I just walk into? And I made a comment like that. And then we all started talking. And the final joke was putting newer generations of people into an escape room where they had to read messages that were written in cursive. And then they had to use a rotary phone to punch in if they figured out the clue, they had to use a rotary phone to make the phone call that got them out. It's a joke, but it's good, right? I mean, find those people who get it and who understand, because back in the day when those things existed, we were a very different world. I mean, I'm a part of that. I grew up in that. It was a very different world. It's nowhere. Evil has done a damn good job of tearing us apart. And then using, I'm not using disclosure as a way to push my religion or my faith, but my faith and my religion gives me a perspective of how to look at what's really going on in the world right now and what is this all about? Here we go again kind of thing. And I think to Anthony's point, I really do fear it's just all part of the larger ruses that have been used against us. We are being psyoped on a daily basis. Again, your political leaders don't give a shit about me and you. If they did, the Smith-Mundt Act would have been repealed from the beginning. It is so anti-American. It's so anti-freedom. And yet they're allowing it to persist, just like the TSA still exists, just like, the Patriot Act still exists, just like, FISA courts still exist. Man, they don't want you to have freedom. I agree with them. And I didn't bring him on because I agree with that point, but it's philosophically and human, on a human level, on an emotional level. We both know that's what's going on. And that's exactly, in my opinion, how this is going to be used. We're not going to find out that there's little green men from Mars. There's no way they're going to do it because it opens them up to too many attacks. They'll have to answer all these things about what, all these other events and where's that technology. It's going to be interdimensional, in my opinion, or however you want to phrase that. And that's going to be spiritual. Well, I'm a Christian. I already know that stuff exists. What are you talking about? But it'll be twisted and distorted to get the smooth brains, the sheeples to go along with it. And then it'll just be a handful of us left, looking around like, my God, this really is bizarro Superman world. What the hell just happened here? And that's the ultimate goal. It's not about the empowerment of the human species. It's not about capturing. See, this is here. I'm going to end it for me on my final note. I'm American. I love my country. I love our history. There's so many other people like, you guys don't even have a history. Bullshit. Bullshit. The history of this country is what has set the whole world in the direction it's gone. Our history is based off of all of you other mofos who didn't like the people who made too much noise. They fled, came here, and then they created a country, whether you like it or not. Look, immigration. Oh, well, that was Mexico. No, it wasn't. And who was Mexico? Who created Mexico? You guys aren't even paying attention to your own damn histories. No, we are explorers. We are voyageurs. We are entrepreneurs. We are people who take risks, even if it kills us in the most gruesome ways. Like, what was that guy from Jeremiah Johnson? He's dead and he leaves a note. I got the bar, but the bear got me. This is a good rifle. He had no regrets. He was out there trying to make a living for himself in the wilderness, and the wilderness killed him, because that's what the wilderness can do. No, we need to bring that spirit back. And if we found out that there really was life in different galaxies, different solar systems, part of our galaxy, however you want to phrase that, man, doesn't anybody out there want to find out what does Jupiter really look like? Could we colonize Mars? Could we actually, I don't even know what the technology and the time it would take, to actually make that a livable planet again. What is the real truth about Mars? What's the real truth about the moon? Is the moon real? It's like the only moon in for what we know, for our universe and what we can see. It's the only one we see that's like this, the way it orbits, its effect, all this stuff. And then to Anthony's point, we're not even willing to think about our own ancient history. There's so many stories, cultural stories. They're all so similar, and they all keep coming back to these same things. We don't even know our own timeline, our own history. Oh, man's only been around for a couple thousand years. Bullshit, man. I mean, go. So if you don't know this stuff, I encourage you to look into it. Yep. There is so much we don't even know. So again, you got to have an open mind. Man, there was clearly some type of advanced ancient society, 11,000 years ago, before the Younger Dryas. The evidence is there all around us if you're willing to look at it and just not say, well, that's bullshit. I don't believe in that stuff. Okay, well, that's pretty naive and arrogant, That's my final comment right there. I think it's going to be used for evil, Anthony. And because the purpose is to tear us farther apart, subjugate us, control us. And there's unfortunately going to be way too many people who are going to go along with it. There is not an omnipotent, benevolent government out there that's going to use this technology and share with humanity for the advancement of humanity, so we can start exploring the solar system. And you'll hear people argue, well, maybe we shouldn't because we're too violent. We're too whatever. Well, we weren't always like that. We've had good moments of peace, 100 years, no wars. We were doing pretty good here until recently. I mean, hell, are we going to go to war with Iran to show the rest of the world that we have advanced technology? Is that going to be disclosure? It's possible, but going to war with Iran, strap yourselves in. I don't know what the gas is where you live, but it'll double or triple the moment we go to war with Iran. And there will be human suffering and casualties. Iran's not going to roll over. It's not going to be Gulf One. It's not going to be anything like that. It's a different nation state, different actor state. They got different technology. Regime change isn't that simple. No matter what book somebody, who's advising Trump wants to tell them, it ain't going to happen. Strait of Hormuz will be shut down in a heartbeat. So are we going to use this to show off the advanced technology that we reversed engineered from crashed alien aircraft to destroy a whole bunch of other human beings? Because if that's all we're using it for, I don't want any part in that shit. I'll go back to living out, in a wigwam or a tent or something like that. I don't want to be a part of that. I want that technology so we can actually start exploring our solar system, improving life for other human beings. Man, there's somebody out there right now who's probably got the answer to everything, but doesn't have the time to apply his or her brain, power to it because they're working 2 to 3 jobs just trying to pay the frickin' bills. That's by design too. There it is. That was my closing statement. I'm fired up now, boys and girls. But yeah, there ain't gonna be no disclosure. Get right with God. Get right, and as a Christian, hey, I'm sorry if that offends you. If you're a different religion and you think that the thought of of alien life forms, well, then your religion doesn't have a foundation. To me, that's just of course there's life on alien planets. Duh, it's God, man. Do you think he made us and then said, that's it, I'm done? Well, that's it. I can't do any better than them humans. I'm not going to do anything ever again. I only created these billions of galaxies and planets, but yeah, whatever, man. I made humans. That's it. At top of my list. And I don't think so. I don't think so. Anthony, we're at 110.
Yeah.
That is my kind of outro for me.
Well, I was just going to say, getting back to your wigwam comment, getting back to basics of nature is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you could live a very free, fulfilled, and moral life out in a small community and not have to deal with the rest of the craziness that's going on elsewhere in the world. So, who knows?
Right on. All right, take us. So, what are your final thoughts on that? Then, I mean, I liked where you're going, and we wanted to bring up the moral side of it, the religious, the philosophical side of it. Well, I don't know if we've beat that to death, or if you've got more to add to it, or if you just want to make a summation. But take it away, sir.
Yeah, I mean, in summation, I mean, we're most certainly not going to get the answers that we've all been waiting for our entire lifetimes. So at this point, all we can do is take a look at whatever crap they shovel our way, and then we'll read through it and then realize, wow, this is like the same recycled garbage that they've given us and the same tired explanations. And yeah, we're not going to be any better for it. It's just going to be another thing to distract us from another atrocity that was supposed to be revealed previously. And then I believe there were certain other files that were supposed to be open, like the MLK, the JFK, the Robert Kennedy assassinations. All those things were supposed to be out. Did we get them in full? No. Everything's fully redacted. The e-files redacted. These files are going to be redacted. We don't get answers because we don't have virtuous people at the helm. That's the problem. We have compromised creeps at the helm. And that's all we'll ever have, because they will never allow good moral people to be in their circles. It just will never happen. Even though there are more of us than there are of them, they seem to be the ones that control the gateway. That being said, I would even though that is the case, I would still advocate for the everyday person who lives a real life, that knows what the price of bread is, that knows how much milk and gasoline are, to take that time to really dig deep within themselves and say, you know what, do I want to be part of a local school board, or do I want to run for local office and try to change things that way? You can't just give up, when it comes to a lot of these things. You have to push back. If at the end of it you lose, then you lose, but at least you went down swinging. So it's very important to go out there and just give something your all. You don't like the people that are representing you, then you try to be the one to represent you and your family and your community. You take the time out. But that is, that's an individual's choice to make. You can't compel people to do that, but people should think about it. If something bothers them that much, sometimes they have to get off their own their duff and do it themselves. Sometimes it's that way. I mean, out by me with this, for instance, just as like a weird aside, all the snow that we got pelted with in the Northeast, and people unfortunately just depend on the government to clean up everywhere, when it comes to snow removal. Yeah, the street and stuff like that, but then there are certain sidewalks and things like that if the community said, hey, you know what, why don't we break it up and do sections, they would actually have a sidewalk clear. But they don't do that. They wait for the government never does it, and then you just have ice there for weeks or months. So sometimes you're the answer, not the government. You and your neighbor and your friends and people in your family, those are the people that are going to be the answers to the problems. They're going to be the ones that can get things done. That's why it's very important to be more community based versus sitting on your hands and waiting for the government to come take care of something for you, because they're never going to do it. They're never going to do it adequately either. So what's the point? All right, sorry, that was just my little rant.
Nope, that's a good one. Do you want to add one or two more lines to it? Because otherwise, that's going to be our outro right there.
No, that I'll leave it there. I mean, honestly, it's up to us sometimes. We've got to step into the breach and we've got to start handling business. You can't wait for these people to do things for you or to come clean or be just. If you know that these people are unjust, you've got to vote them out. And sometimes you have to be the one to run against them. It's just the way that it is.
And if you know that these things that you've either witnessed or you've seen, evidence, or you've heard, compelling testimony from, individuals who have everything to lose and nothing to gain from, you don't wait for the government to talk to you about transparency or disclosure. They're never going to do it again.
Yeah.
I just think it's a joke. Maybe there wasn't enough humor in this, we didn't apply enough humor to tonight, but disclosure from the government about something we've all figured out for ourselves without their help. Come on, man.
Well, thank you to Gene for commenting. I've seen he has like a few comments in there.
Yeah, no. So, yeah. Hey, it is what it is. Chatsters. I mean, maybe you've just found us, honestly, I think it's your beard. Everybody has just been so mesmerized by your beard. Like no one knew how to type things up, but hey, seriously, thanks for watching, whether you left anything in the chat or not. You know how it goes. The chat's fun. I hope you guys, and we're doing this. I hope it's entertaining for you, educational, fun. The chat's always a nice thing to read and hear where everybody's from and things that nature. Gene did make a couple points, but my favorite one was this last one. Was Stargate a show or a way of showing us things that have happened? Evil tells you what it's doing. Evil admits to its stuff. I mean, so
it's telling us what CERN's doing.
All right. Final comments there, Anthony. I'm good.
I just wish some of the guys in the chat gave us some of their theories. That would have been nice.
Yeah. Well, next time, this won't be the only one. We'll do another follow-up. Because if you heard, near the end, we're trying to be solution-based, results, and trying to give you options if you haven't thought about it. And that's not really saying a whole lot. What we say, hey, find a family, find community, start creating it. Well, because you hear everybody saying it, like, oh God, everybody says the same thing, because it's the simplest, easiest thing that you can do. And it's going to start paying dividends, hopefully, unless you make bad decisions or whatever. And your community is a bunch of, like tweaked out crackheads or something like that. Hell, who knows? Maybe you'll have more clarity, moral clarity. And, I don't know, maybe that'll work for you. You do you. So AVV just said, late. I'll go back and start from the beginning. Yeah, we're wrapping up there, AVV, but good to see you, sir. Thanks.
Great to see you, AVV.
Hey, all right, Gandalf, you take us final comments, and then I'm taking us out.
No, I've done my final comments. You're good to go. You have to do the joke.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay, hey, well, then here's my question for you. See, I'm bringing with somebody someplace else. Do we do another one of Corbett's jokes, or do we do one of Steve's jokes?
Well, you have to do a Steve joke because he's the originator of these. Of this segment.
All right, we'll do one of. Yeah. Oh, and I had two good Steve jokes. We'll do one. No, I'm gonna have to do the first one because it goes right in with Corbett's joke. Did you guys plan this? Like Corbett did the divorce joke. All right, so one of the two Steve jokes has to do the same thing. Hey, Anthony, I bought my wife a mood ring and it turns red when she's annoyed. I'm not sure if it turns any other color. It's always red, man. It's always red. Thanks, guys, for the dad jokes. They're always humorous and fun, and just keeps it real and keeps it grounded. So keep them coming. I appreciate it. We'll have more jokes next time. I think that wraps up for tonight. I mean, this is another comment or topic. We could easily talk for 3 hours.
I actually do have a ton of notes, but I knew we were never going to touch upon everything.
Well, I think this is another one we're going to put in our hip pocket for. We'll do a part 2 in the near future. Because we can get into solution based, that community aspect, the spirituality, the just, if you're honest with yourself, well then, none of these things should be scary. And then if you're honest with yourself, your government's lying to you, left and right, unless you're like just a bootlicking zealot. I suppose if that's what you want to do, you do you. But I don't ever want to be that person. So we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching tonight. For everybody in the chat. Thanks for everybody who watches on demand. Now, Anthony's here, so I'm going to let him say what he tells me I should say all the time. What am I supposed to tell everybody at the end here, Anthony?
Just make sure you comment on the video, that you like the video, and if you're not subscribed, subscribe.
There it is. It really does help. And, that goes into everything. They don't want us talking. They don't want us being comfortable. They don't want us being educated, enlightened, however you want to phrase that. It's the truth. Censored. So there's another thing. No one's talked about Section 230 ever since, when it was Biden, then it was like every conservative, every patriot, censorship, Where did that whole thing go? That was like there's a dad joke there and about a squeaky fart somewhere that I can make, but no, that's gone. No one's even talking about that anymore. So, but it's true. And so help it out as best you can, especially if you believe in it. And if these are the things you want to see more of, or again, or it's just, look, I'm not going to run for office. I'm not going to be that guy. If old Mark ever came back and I was in office, I would be maybe the best politician ever, because I would just be like going rampage. Just like there's so much evil and crazy, horrible people. So, that's probably not the type of politician we need, but we do need good politicians. We need good, honest men and women who are not afraid to stand up there and say, no, you're full of shit and we're not doing that. And that's wrong. But again, look where we are. No one's been fired for any of the graft and corruption. No one's lost their government jobs. No one's getting the money back that the EPA just gave away, the 90-some million dollars. None of that stuff. Where's the audit of Fort Knox? Where's all this other stuff? See, again, so you can be blue team or you can be red team if that's how you view it. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. All right, boys and girls. Next week, I'm not sure what we're doing. We're either having George come back for a follow-up on the conversation I had with George. We're going to talk about some results-oriented things that we can do. Maybe Anthony will come back and we'll sit and talk about part 2 of disclosure. We may have already gone to war with Iran by then, and we'll be sitting here talking about how our gas is double to triple what you're paying for in your local community right now. So, or how a nuke landed in, some European or Middle Eastern or American city. Just stay tuned. Keep thinking, keep moving, never quit, be prepared, have faith, have family. That C.S. Lewis, if that day comes, wouldn't you rather be in the bar, or at the table with your family and friends, or would you rather be hiding and sulking under a table and whining about it all? So thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Gene just said he would be an evil bender. Evil Bender had a name. I can't remember what his name was, Gene. He had, he had the little pointy beard thing. That's a good episode or two. But all right, thanks, you guys. Really appreciate everybody.
God bless you guys.
Yeah, live stream or on demand. We'll see you again next Wednesday. All that other stuff. Huge shout out to Gandalf. Anthony is now Gandalf. Look at that beard. He definitely gets the title. That's definitely a Gandalf beard. So thanks to Anthony for coming on. And we'll see you guys again next week. So reach out if you got questions, comments. And if not, we'll just see you next Wednesday. Right, Anthony?
Yep. That's right.
There it is. Why is
Great
there a
seeing
weird
you, Gene and
thing on my
ABB.
Hang on. Why is there a weird thing on my screen? Can you see that?
What thing? The eye?
My screen is showing the comment section.
Yeah, at the bottom. Yeah.
Bottom right.
Mhm.
What the heck is that? Wow. No idea what that's all about. Let's see if we can get rid. No, there it is still. There it is still. What the hell? This software is being all weird. All right, everybody. That's it. We'll end it on a weird note. Ooh. Be good. We'll see you guys again. Hey, say it one more time. God bless.
God bless you guys in the chat, and God bless you all that watch the videos.
Amen. All right. We'll see you guys again soon. Be good.